I'm Chris Mirabella, and this is my showroom shop in Smithtown, Long Island. I custom make archtop guitars, other stringed instruments as well, and do a bit of restoration work. We thankfully cater to a vast amount of clientele, and all wonderful, from professional players like Rocco Giacca and Fabio Martino, amazing players touring all over the world, local players, to weekend guys. I appreciate every one of them and kind of look at them the same, in that whether you're a professional player playing for hundreds of thousands of people or a guy playing for his family, you know, if your love for the guitar is the same, you're kind of the same. When I was 9 years old, my dad passed away. And when my dad passed away, like any little kid who adored his father, my world ended. I saw the guitar as a way of being able to talk and share your feelings without having to share your feelings. And I have the opportunity of going to a shop, and immediately upon walking into the shop, it just looked fantastic. I remember notably one of the guys was playing an Epiphone Emperor, and I never saw a guitar like that. But they're in the corner, they're playing this music that I really knew nothing about, and it just sounded so cool, and the way the two guitars were merging together, that I brought my guitar for the repair that I was asking for, but immediately said, "Can I have a job? Could I please work here?" The gentleman looks at me as this little kid and goes, "Yeah, we're not really looking for anybody." But I went home, I told my mom about it. I said to her, "Well, if you come with me when I go pick up the guitar, maybe he'll think I'm serious, because I'm now, you know, you're saying it too, and you're the adult." And it kind of worked. And from that, I started out working after school. I got to work on Saturdays, and a little bit became more and more until it became everything. The most significant and the life-changing guitar repair was just a couple of years later. I now was doing some setup work. I was disassembling the guitars that were going to get worked on. And I was asked to go in the back and get a D'Angelico New Yorker that was in for binding repair. And I remember walking to the back, I opened the case, and it was just, even in its distressed state, it was the most beautiful guitar I ever saw. And it just looked so cool. And I remember, for whatever reason, strumming the strings, old strings, the pickguard falling off, this thing still sounded so vibrant and wonderful that I literally, as this young kid, looked around the side of the case to see if it was plugged into something. I remember distinctly doing that and going, it can't do that on its own. And then realizing that it did do it on its own. And that's when everything went into, I want to figure out how this is made. I want to understand how an archtop can do this without pickups or anything. That D'Angelico changed everything from that moment on. So after sweeping the floor, after sanding a few guitars, one of the things I got to do was make pickguards. One of the dearest moments to me is, while I was around Jimmy D'Acquisto many a times for things relative to the shop when we needed supplies, there was a moment when the guys decided that they would kind of formally introduce me to Jimmy, and I was this young kid. I get tapped on the shoulder and they say to me, "Hey, Chris, someone would like to meet you." And again, I'm 12, 13 years old, something like that. And I turn around and Jimmy D'Acquisto is standing in front of me. And Jimmy very sweetly goes, "Chris," goes, "I hear they tell me you can make a pickguard better than I can." When I was dumbfounded, I actually did not speak, to the point where I said to him, "Oh, Mr. D'Acquisto, thank you so much." And he very sweetly goes, "Call me Jimmy." And I'm so nervous that I yet again say, "Thank you, Mr. D'Acquisto." And he just kind of laughs and rolls his eyes. But it was such a wonderful moment. But that the pickguards really became one of the things where I was special. And it also was, when I started my own shop, it was one of the first things I did and offered the guys, that it was like, okay, this will get me by as I'm getting my restoration work, as I'm deciding how I'm going to become Mirabella Guitars as the instrument. This will be the foundation of what I do, and thankfully made pickguards for everybody. I actually ended up working for Gibson for a notable period of time, and then I'm making them for the B.B. King Lucille model. I had to make some special ones for B.B. King himself. And I remember one evening, there I am had stopped to hang out with my mom. I think we were over for dinner or something. We were watching something on one of the channels, and B.B. King is playing on the TV. And my grandmother, she nudges me while I'm on the couch, and she goes, see, you did get to get up there and play with all those people you said you would play with. And it kind of struck me because I kind of said, yeah, that pickguard made on Long Island, made by Mirabella Guitars, was on B.B. King's guitar. And B.B. King, being one of the guys I so admired and thought was wonderful, that's allowing him to be B.B. King. Primarily and thankfully, I'm noted for doing the binding restoration on the D'Angelicos, the Strombergs, and Jimmy's instruments. Regretfully, it was the celluloid plastic that's on a lot of the D'Angelicos crumbles and starts emitting a gas with time. And once it starts doing that, it just is so cancerous to itself and anything surrounding it. A lot of friends who are other builders will joke with me. They're like, Chris, why do you bother doing restoration work? Because it is kind of difficult to keep the two going when you're basically a one-man shop. But again, the education of it, I think is just too valuable to not always have around you. I take the approach of restoration of not doing anything that's unnecessary. So you don't want to remove wood or finish. I will sit there and painstakingly spend a month and a half, 2 months, scraping the binding off of a D'Acquisto so I don't touch the Jimmy's finish. In restoration, your great glory is never being noticed. In building, it's being noticed. It's taking those elements of the guitars you so inspired you, the D'Angelicos, and moving forward enough to the point where they see the Mirabella and say, that's a Mirabella, but there's something about it that's very familiar to me. I think Mirabella guitars are about the tradition of the guitars that came before them. They definitely pay homage to the D'Angelicos and the D'Acquistos. They were a major influence. They're all the things I wish I could say as a person, but can't. And then I have the pleasure, the joy of having these wonderful players take them and make music with them, and then they say things that I couldn't even imagine. So, you put the energy and effort into making them, and that's not the reward. It's the reward when it's finished, but it's the gift that keeps giving to you, because every time you see a player playing one of them, you marvel at their ability and what that guitar is allowing them to do, and knowing you contributed to that is wonderful. Bourbon on the Rocks is a guitar I made for my friend Artie Forster. Artie was a jeweler by trade. He wanted to do something special, and he came to me and said, I'd like to do a guitar that has diamonds in the guitar. And I said, oh, that's cool. And all of us, we had a tradition, actually it was a tradition of the old shop, where on a Saturday at 5 o'clock, kind of to toast the week, a good week, and a hope for next week to be nice, we would have a toast of bourbon. So we came up with the idea of putting the diamonds in it, but because of the bourbon thing, we said, you know what, let's call it Bourbon on the Rocks, and let's paint it a bourbon tone color. And when we mixed the lacquer, we put a little bit of Blanton's bourbon in the lacquer as kind of a toast to the guitar. It's a trapdoor model guitar, so it has actually sliding doors that allow you to change the tone of the guitar. So I believe, if I remember what he said correctly, there's 6 or 7 carats worth of diamonds all in bourbon. These 2 Pattern Makers files were a Christmas gift from my mom to me when I was 12 years old. They have shaped every Mirabella neck that's ever been created. And I remember my mom saying to me, I think you'll get where you want to go if you understand what these do. And I think to some degree I'm still learning what they do, because there's more to be done. But they've been the best friends. I think I developed my voice primarily through, again, thankfully, the players. Having an abundance of phenomenal players, and them just being so kind with their time and interest in what I was doing, to be always kind, but be kind of direct. Oh, Chris, this sounds great. could you get more from this? How do you get a little, this is nice, but if it had some more bottom, some better balance in this upper section, having thankfully the instruments, those vintage instruments, to be able to grab the D'Angelico, play a couple chords and go, okay, this is what the D'Angelico is doing. Now, where am I? Where's the Mirabella at? And not just trying to copy the D'Angelico, because I think you run into a kind of a trap if you just try to copy it. Because if you make it yours, you're going to make it perfect. If you make it a copy, it's just going to be a copy. Through the whole journey of music, one of the things that has been a companion through the whole thing has been D'Addario strings. As a little kid, it was the string I was told to use at the beginning. So as a young kid and player, you really don't understand what that means. But I quickly, again, having had the pleasure of growing around notable players, they all used D'Addario strings. I didn't actually understand why until much later I realized they had an incredible sound. They were very reliable. When I started playing myself, I didn't break them. Other strings I tried, let's try. I knew going into it always with D'Addario strings that they would give me what I needed and hoped for. When it came time for the Mirabella instruments, they were a consistent string that I knew that if I did my job right and I put the D'Addario strings on the guitar would do what it was supposed to do. And there's been many times in vintage restoration situations, you put a fresh set of 12s on a D'Angelico, the guitar comes to life. You can have a great guitar, and if one component's not working perfectly with it, it's not going to be bad, but it's going to be not all it can be. And I have always found that for me and for Mirabella guitars, D'Addario strings are part of that ingredient of making the guitars what they need to be.